Let's get things started. I am Diane Blazik. I'm the Executive Director with National Garden Bureau. We are hosting a webinar today all about foliage in your garden and in your home that you can take in your garden, right, Justin? So we have a lot of things to talk about today. What I want to do is do a brief introduction of our panelists, and then I will let them do a more in-depth introduction of themselves and their companies. So let's see here. I'm just going to start at the top. We have Katie Rotella from Pan American Seed. We have Natalie Carmoli from Proven Winter Spring Meadow Nursery. We have Justin Hancock from Costa Farms, and we have Debbie Lani from Bailey Nursery First Edition Shrubs and Plants, right? It's both shrubs and plants. Okay, got to get all these titles right. So let's go back to you, Katie, and you can introduce yourself.
Yep. Hello, friends. I'm Katie Rotella. I am here on behalf of Pan American Seed, who you may not know, but is the maker of wave petunias. So if you've gardened with pink potted wave petunias before, you can thank our lovely breeders at Pan American Seed. It's very exciting to talk about foliage because it gives such great structure to a lot of great annuals that I'm going to be focusing on today. And I've been with our company here for the past 16 years. I just love talking about plants with home gardeners and members of the garden communication teams. So I hope you learn a lot, and we always look forward to helping you from Pan American Seed.
Thank you, Katie. Now, Natalie.
Hi there. My name is Natalie Carmoli. I work for Spring Meadow Nursery out here in Grand Haven, Michigan. We're right on the lovely coast of Lake Michigan and on the west side of the Lower Peninsula. We grow all of the shrubs for the Proven Winners Color Choice brand. So my job is public relations specialist for Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs. And boy, oh boy, if there isn't anything that brings color so well to a garden as shrubs, although I'm looking at some pretty nice looking hostas right now, but there's nothing more fun than colorful foliage. I'm excited to talk about it today. Just like Katie, I love talking about plants. So it's going to be a fun hour that I think goes by really quickly, and I'm happy to be here.
You're right, probably too quickly, but we can fit it all in. Okay, who is next? Justin.
Thanks for having me, Diane. I am Justin Hancock with Costa Farms. If you are not familiar, Costa Farms is the largest houseplant grower in the North America. We grow about 1,500 varieties of indoor and outdoor plants. And you can find our plants at retailers all across the country. Big box retailers, Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, as well as a lot of small independent garden centers.
Thank you. And Debbie.
Hi, everybody. I am Debbie Lonnie. I am Product Development Manager at Bailey Nurseries. Home base is Minnesota, but we have farms across the country. My job is to source genetics for the Bailey consumer brand. So not only the First Editions brand, Endless Summer Hydrangea, Easy Elegance Roses, and some of that breeding work comes from our own company called Bailey Innovations, which is a breeding farm down in Athens, Georgia. So while I am a Minnesota native, I do know a little bit about southern plants with color. And hopefully we got plenty of people from across the country, and we can talk about cold zones and warm zones.
Excellent. We will definitely do that. And Natalie mentioned the hosta that's on the screen right now. Last year was the year of the hosta for National Garden Bureau, and we did have a webinar and a blog on that. So maybe Gail can fit those in, because I just realized by looking at our panelists, we have houseplants, we have annuals, we have shrubs and trees. So I kind of left out perennials, and my apologies, but we've got a lot of sources for that. So there's a lot of great foliage and perennials also. But to get started, two things to begin. If anybody has any questions, we're kind of freeform. You can put them in the Q&A or you can put them in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. We will be monitoring both, and we'll try to get everybody's questions answered. And the way I want to start our webinar is to ask each one of our panelists, what's the most common question you get when the subject of foliage comes up? Is there a blank stare? And I know a lot of times we in the industry are saying foliage when really it's leaves, but it could be more than leaves. So does anybody want to pop up and just kind of explain one of the questions that you always get and how you answer it?
I'll raise my hand here. And speaking on behalf of the annuals portion of this program, how much space does it need? How big does it get? Because I think people associate foliage with either, obviously things that don't have a flower. They want to know, am I going to need 6 of these to fill my space? Is one going to just get monster leaves and fill it up? So I think that's the number one question that I usually receive from like my family and friends. They love something, they see it, and it's always so small in the garden center. And then maybe they overbuy, they get 6 of them and they realize, oh gosh, I should space these 3 feet apart and I've overmaxed myself. Or they don't buy enough and then they get less of an impact. So I usually tell them, take a look at that plant tag, all the plants you see in stores, or if you order from a mail order catalog, the basic information is finished, height, and spread. Definitely pay attention to that for your area, so that you recognize how big this thing is going to get for your garden space.
Great tip. Okay, who else?
I have an answer that is actually related to what your foliage can tell you. So it's not really a question about foliage, but it's a question we get a lot, which is watering. And people always are like, how much should I water? Let's just use hydrangeas. We sell and answer a lot of questions. It's our most asked category of plant when it comes to questions. And your foliage can really tell you a lot when it comes to watering, especially with hydrangeas and also with a lot of other plants. But referring to that specific genus, if you're looking at your hydrangea, what you want to do is water it deeply 2-3 times a week. In general, more if it's hot, more if you're in a really sunny area, but your foliage is going to tell you some things. If it's too dry, it's going to get dried up and crinkly. It's going to start browning around the edges. But a lot of people think when their plant gets droopy, let's just douse it with more water. And what your plant's going to tell you is those leaves are almost going to get sodden. They're going to become mushy and kind of droop. Like that water is going to deposit itself in that leaf and give a really mushy, floppy appearance. So leaves can really tell you a lot about your plant and about its health.
Perfect. Thank you. Who's next?
So my world is a little different because it is all about the foliage. But when you're talking specifically about leaves, by far number one question we get is, why are they turning yellow? And I often use the stomach analogy. It's the upset stomach of the gardening world. It can be anything from you had bad sushi last night to, there's a serious problem and you need to go to the emergency room. Unfortunately, yellow leaves takes a little bit of investigation looking at the environment to try to narrow down the specific cause, because in houseplants, it often has the same root coming from the roots, where the roots are not able to absorb enough moisture, either because there's too much moisture in the soil, they're dying, there's not enough moisture in the soil, they can't suck it up, they've been over-fertilized, or other types of stress.
So it kind of depends on which plant and everything, but yes, that's good.
Yeah,
Great.
sadly, there's no easy answer to yellow leaves.
Yeah, yep. Okay, Debbie.
Well, I'm going to talk about yellow leaves in a different way. So in the shrub world, there have been a lot of great introductions in the last 10 or 20 years with yellow or chartreuse foliage. And it really does add a great pop of color to the garden. But one common question about those plants is, why is it not yellow? Why is it not holding the color? Why is it lime green? And in almost every case, that has to do with the amount of sunlight that a yellow plant can take. Sometimes they can take full sun, sometimes they can take a little more shade, but if you have the wrong amount of sunlight, you don't get that beautiful yellow foliage. So something to really think about when you're choosing a yellow shrub.
Again, pay attention to the tag and what their recommendations are for sunlight. Perfect. Well, I'm really eager to get through these varieties that you guys have provided. So we've got a little set. I think there's about 12 slides for each one of our panelists. I think you're up first, Justin. So
All right.
we'll let you go, and then you can just tell me when to go to the next slide.
All right, so I'm going to talk about tropicals today. And one of the great things about being able to use tropicals for foliage in the garden is that you can do it anywhere. It doesn't matter if you live up near Debbie in Minnesota. It doesn't matter if you live down near me in Miami or San Diego. These plants are great as annual accents, either in landscape beds or borders or containers. And we often focus on houseplants being in the house, but they all come from the great outdoors and their native environments. And in most environments, as long as you give them the right light, the right moisture, they don't get too cold, they're going to thrive really, really beautifully outdoors, so much more even than they do indoors. And so it's a great way to add a new texture, add a fresh color, add just a fresh look to either your beds and borders or your containers. First one I wanted to call out is Aglaonema. Common name is Chinese evergreen. This is just a phenomenally sturdy plant. Comes in a wide range of variegations, so it's really easy and fun to customize your look. A lot of the older varieties have green and silver variegation. The newer varieties, you might find they're variegated with yellow or pink or red or orange or purple, and some have multiple shades. You can get these as small plants, as small as like a 4-inch or a 6-inch pot, up to plants in like a 10-inch pot. So it gives you a great amount of versatility to be able to use in containers. Alocasia is another fun genus of tropical plants that you can use. Common name is elephant ears here. The green varieties are the sort of tried and true, but plant breeders have been working on. There are so many really cool varieties. This one here, for example, is called Regal Shields, has olive green leaves on the front, purple on the back. Alocasias also give you a nice range of sizes. There are some dwarf varieties that stay under a foot, and then you can get just giants that get more than 6 feet tall and wide. So again, it's really fun, really exciting opportunity to be able to customize your look, get exactly what you want, and make it look different than everybody else's. If you're looking for pure color from foliage and you want to rival any flower out there, Cordyline is a great choice. Cordyline common name is tea plant. A lot of varieties have this hot pink or bright red new growth. Really, really fantastic tropical for hot, humid spaces, but it holds up pretty well to drought as well. And this is nice because unlike the first couple of varieties, this gives you an upright texture and upright structure in your beds, borders, or containers. There are other variegated varieties of Cordyline too that have splashes of yellow or pink, or some even have a little bit of orange in them. And so it's just really, really exciting. Croton is perhaps the second most colorful foliage plant there is. On the sides here is a variety called Petra. In the center is a variety called Mammy. And as you can see, there's also a nice variety of textures as well as the colors you can get from Croton. And like the Aglaonema, they're available in a wide range of sizes from little 4-inch all the way up to 10-inch pots or larger. They're just so easy, especially if you live in a hot, humid climate, because they come from hot, humid climates. And so if you get that summer heat wave, you don't need to worry about, oh, do I need to give these guys special care? Because that's exactly what they're hoping for. There's a wide range of ficus as well. Fiddly fig is sort of one of the queen of the indoor plant world. And she works really beautifully on porches and patios as well as inside. Now, if you want to bring existing houseplants out, highly recommend doing an acclimation process by moving them to a shady spot first and then gradually giving them a little bit more sun. Like us, when they've been in the house or if they come right from the grower, they're often grown under dense shade. And so they're not used to the sun. I grew up in Minnesota, and I remember how easy it is to get a sunburn those first sunny days where you wear short sleeves and you're outside enjoying the sun, but your skin's not used to it. Same thing with the plant leaves. So if you move them out to a shady spot for a couple of weeks and then bring them to a slightly sunnier location, or you give them some sun for an hour one day, a couple of hours the next day, that will help them build up that tolerance and avoid leaf burn. So in addition to fiddle leaf, rubber tree is a great tried and true variety. In the middle there's a variety called Schefflera, as well as a white variegated variety called Taniki, or a pink variegated variety called Ruby. They're all just so exciting. They will grow so much faster than you think outdoors too. And so it's really rewarding to be able to watch that happen. I saw a question in the chat, what should the outside temperature be before moving your tropicals outside? Great question. I say about 50 degrees 10 C at night for me. You can probably get away with a little colder. It's more likely to stress your plants, but 50 is a good threshold at night.
And you notice that I put the little preview of 2026
Yes,
will be
that's
the year of the
exciting.
ficus. So I don't think too many people know that yet. So some of the people on the webinar are finding out early, but I just had to interject that.
Sneak
Okay.
peek. Oh, we went back instead of forward, I think.
Oops. Let's try go forward. There we go.
All right. So this is the year of the Monstera, and it is totally apt to be able to use this amazing tropical plant outside. Monstera deliciosa is the tried and true variety, has that big heart-shaped leaf with those big splits, and then it develops fenestrations or holes as it gets bigger. This is just so easy, so phenomenal, so much texture. If you want to up it and elevate your experience, there's a new variety or newer variety called Thai Constellation that has variegated foliage with creamy white. Same growth, everything about it is the same as the Deliciosa, except you get that really, really cool variegation. And again, like the ficus, they will grow so much faster if you bring them out for your summer vacation. So let them enjoy life on your porch, your patio, your deck, even in containers in a shaded garden, and then move them indoors in the fall when it starts to get cold. On the far right here, we have a sneak peek. This is a variety called Monstera pinnata partita. And this is a variety we just launched for the very first time ever on our website today. So the timing was exceptionally fun. Like the other ones, big, bold leaves, really sturdy, holds up to heat, holds up to drought, holds up humidity. Really, really fantastic plant for anywhere. And speaking of plants that hold up to anything, Sansevieria, also called snake plant. These add fun, upright, vertical texture, especially to planters. I like planting these with petunias and other spreading plants because they're just so upright and they create that lovely visual contrast. And there's a wide range of Sansevierias available now too, so you can customize like the other plants. On the left here, we have a variety called Moonshine that's all silver. It gives you that nice, elegant look. It's not going to clash with anything. And then on the right here, we have a variety called Laurentii that has yellow variegated leaves. Sansevieria, probably the most drought tolerant of the tropical plants that we do. I know indoors, a lot of people say they only water their Sansevieria once a month. And so outdoors, it really, really gives you the opportunity to create these carefree containers or annual plantings in your beds and borders if you don't want to have to bring it in. Schefflera, also called umbrella tree. There's a species called arboricola. And if any of you are from Florida, you might be rolling your eyes a little bit. This one falls in the category down here in Miami that I would call a gas station plant, in that you see it at just about every gas station or fast food restaurant. And that tells you how durable it is. It's in these landscapes where it doesn't get any maintenance. But as an annual in the northern climates, it's really tough to beat, especially variegated varieties like the one on the left. It keeps growing. It gives you that right, nice, fun, soft texture. That's a great contrast against a lot of the other tropicals that have the bigger, the bolder leaves. Like imagine how fun this would be paired with that Regal Shield Alocasia that we saw earlier. Just a showstopper. And White Bird of Paradise. This is such an it plant inside right now because it has big, almost paddle-shaped leaves, and it adds so much structure, but it gives you that same look outdoors. Imagine like a line of these, for example, on your patio to help give you a little natural screening, or as a focal point on your front porch. Maybe some soft annuals cascading out of the side of the pot to give it just a pop of color. or Katie can offer some really fun annuals for great foliage too if you don't want to go the flowering look. White Bird of Paradise isn't probably going to bloom for you, but it doesn't need to when it has this big foliage. These leaves can get like 6 feet, or sorry, 3 feet long and several feet wide. And so it's just unstoppable for a bold, easy care look.
Does it come in colors other than white?
No, there is an orange flowering bird of paradise, but that's a mounding tropical evergreen perennial rather than an upright variety like this. The leaves stay much smaller. It doesn't give you that same amazing texture that this one does. Last one on the list is Xanthosoma. This is a close relative of Caladium, if any of you are familiar with that one. It has that arrow-shaped leaf with that fun variegation. The leaves are all crisp and white, with the leaf being a dark green. When I was traveling in Thailand a couple of years ago, I was amazed to see this used in landscapes across Thailand. It gets about 3 feet tall, 3 feet wide, as an annual or a tropical perennial. And it's just so much color. It gives you that zebra look. And it's really fun on a breezy day because it adds that extra sense of motion with those stripes. Really, really fun plant there.
Excellent. And Justin, it looks like you've gotten quite a few questions. So maybe as Katie is going through the annuals, you could answer some of those
Absolutely.
questions on the Q&A. Let's multitask because we've got a lot to fit in 1 hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And keep the tropicals questions coming if you guys have them.
Because Justin will answer them. Okay, thank you. And next up is not Katie. It is Debbie with First Editions. I didn't do my alphabet right when I was thinking who was going next. So Debbie, it's yours. Take it away.
That's okay. Well, speaking of chartreuse leaf plants, so I'm really going to hit a lot of shrubs. I think there's one tree here that have great foliar color for the landscape. This is a dogwood called Neon Burst, came from British Columbia. Wonderful chartreuse foliage with a white flower, typically in June in the north. Plant that gets about 5 to 6 foot tall and wide. But on the picture on the right, you can see, I've kind of considered fall color in some of these slides, and beautiful kind of burgundy red color in the fall. Let's go to the next slide. I just saw there was just a question. What zones can that neon burst grow in? If you're using the current USDA zone map, zone 4, 5, 6, 7, about the best range there. This is a Cotoneaster, also a British Columbia plant, an interspecific cross where you have kind of the best of a couple different types of Cotoneaster, a spreading habit. I'm going to mention it has nice berries too, but we're talking about foliage today. Small, glossy green foliage, great for an informal hedge. And again, the color in the fall is just outstanding. And this one, it really lasts for a long, long time before the leaves drop off. Next slide, Diane. For you Southerners, here is a Chinese native plant called Distylium, also known as fringe tree. That really wasn't in the United States until about 15, 20 years ago. And some folks down, especially at University of Georgia, did some breeding with it. And we have about 5 or 6 varieties in our First Editions program. This is truly a broadleaf evergreen, hardy zone 7 through 9 to 10. Some of them are more upright, some of them are more spreading, but they give you that wonderful foliage all 12 months a year. And if you note here on Cinnamon Girl, the new growth has this kind of cinnamon color to it. Doesn't last a real long time, but it's a real interesting aspect in the spring. This is so easy to grow. It tolerates sun, tolerates a little bit of shade, and it's really being planted in foundations and as hedges across the South now that people and landscapers especially have gotten to know Distylium. Next. We are known at Bailey's for our Hydrangea Endless Summer, but last year we actually put one in our first editions program, and this is a variety called Eclipse. So it is a Hydrangea macrophylla, and it has got this incredible dark purplish foliage to it, and it emerges that color. It stays that color all season long. And then it has these wonderful kind of cranberry red with yellowish white center flowers that really contrast beautifully with that foliage. So this is a shrub that's going to get about 3 foot tall, 3 foot wide. In the Twin Cities, where I am from, it is not going to bloom the best, but the foliage is just this incredible color. It kind of reminds me of some of the dark leaf Weigelias that are on the market that really add that blast of purple to the garden. So this is brand new, and this is 25 is the second year it is on the market. Another southern plant, the genus name, the Latin name is Illicium, but the common name is Anise tree. And we loved naming this. It's called banana peel. It's a great play on words. Again, a nice mounded shrub with beautiful chartreuse foliage. I was just in Florida, Justin, last week. I was up in Sarasota area and visiting a grower. I'm seeing it a lot there. It's used in the Deep South. It's used in Zone 7 a lot. But it has great foliar color. It is a broadleaf evergreen, so it holds that foliage all season long. And yeah, Zone 5, Gail, what we're finding is a lot of people in the colder zones are actually using it as a container thriller plant. I think in Zone 5, maybe a little bit of protection would be helpful, but really is an outstanding plant for the Deep South. For northern gardeners, there are a lot of great Physocarpus or Ninebarks on the market. This was a plant that was bred way up in Winnipeg, Canada, and it's called Amber Jubilee. And it was actually named, or it was named in honor of Queen Elizabeth. This plant's been on the market a good 10 years now. And I actually have pictures of her with the breeders. She's got a shovel in her hand trying to dig a hole. Of course, that was a photo op, wasn't it? But this is a wonderful, colorful plant. In the spring, it emerges, if you see the picture on the left, if you look at that tip growth there, it's kind of this combination of yellow and peachy color, and it really holds that color when it's cooler out. That picture on the left is showing the flowers that come on, kind of a nice pinkish red contrast. And one thing I found when we first got this plant, we had one at the office. I would go out and prune it back about every 4 weeks to see if I could promote some new growth. And the more new growth you get, the more of those peachy yellow tones you get. And it was just great. But then in the fall, you get these kind of orangey, peachy tones. And again, another great season of color on this very easy to grow plant that does so well in the north. Gail, hi Gail. What kind of light do you need for Amber Jubilee? You need full sun. You need about 6 hours minimum of full sunlight a day. I don't care if it's in the morning or in the afternoon. If you go really deep shade, it's going to be more of that kind of limey green color. So many of these colorful Ninebarks need the sun. One of my favorite plants, an oldie but a goodie. It was discovered in one of our bare root growing fields in the Twin Cities, and it's called Tiger Eye Sumac, the most beautiful chartreuse foliage from the minute it emerges in the spring all the way through the summer. Kind of, it's an interesting plant. It will grow about 5-6 foot tall, 5-6 foot wide. I'll be the first to admit that, like many sumacs, it will sucker a little bit, but it's not like some other species that will just take over the world. It's easily controllable. It's a great accent plant in the garden. If you prune it, it can almost be like a Japanese gardeny type looking plant. And it's got some interesting stems to it. And then it does have this fall color. Gail, how does Tiger Eyes do in Zone 3? I think we have plenty of customers in Zone 3. using it. Margaret, it does bloom. I don't know if it's male or female or if it's both, but it will put that red seed head on it, which gets something pollinates it. But it doesn't do it real heavily. It's not invasive or a heavy cedar, but it is really one of our top selling plants in the First Editions brand. It has been in the Bailey Library of Plants for about 20 years, and it's so much fun to drive around the Twin Cities and see it in everybody's yards. It's really caught on with a lot of people, and it's a very popular landscape plant. Another Canadian hybrid, this is Iceberg Alley Salix, which is the Latin name. And this actually came to us through our friends in Winnipeg, but they actually got it from Nova Scotia. And really a cold area. That if you live in way northern Minnesota, where you can get 35, 40 below, even a little colder, you can grow this plant. And so, you know, when we think about silver-leafed plants, it is a color, and it's kind of got a fuzzy leaf to it. If you touch it, it will feel quite soft, and it really adds a distinctive look to the garden. It has a little flower like a pussy willow, and so you get that spring aspect of it as well. It doesn't get overly big. It's kind of interesting. Up in Winnipeg, it doesn't get much more than 3 foot tall. In the Twin Cities, it gets 5 feet plus, a little bit more. And in slightly warmer zones, it gets taller yet. But I will tell you, this plant is not heat tolerant at all. We've tried to grow it down at the farm in Athens, Georgia. It does not like hot, humid summer. So this is really for northern folks. And, you know, we only have so many silver plants to choose from. We have a couple nice perennial genera that we can choose from, but in a shrub, this really adds a nice touch of silver to the garden. This is a little ash leaf spirea. The genus name is Sorberia, and this is a small little compact dwarf plant. The straight species in Minnesota, not used a lot anymore because it can be a little invasive, but this one is not. This one only gets about 2 to 3 foot tall, 2 to 3 foot wide. Again, has some nice peachy tones to it, especially when it's first leafing out in the spring. And what I really like about this genus is actually kind of one of the first things that breaks bud in the spring. You know, spring has sprung when you go outside and you look at your ash leaf spirea and it's starting to break bud. So this is in our display garden down at our greenhouse range, where it's used as in a real informal hedge in front of a really great big hosta. And you can see that wonderful textural difference between those two plants. That's exactly how it should be used. Loves full sun, takes a little bit of shade, but not deep shade. Really, really easy to grow. This is Vitex, the genus. Can you tell I like to use botanical Latin? This is also known as Chastetree. And this is a different species. In the South, Vitex is used a lot. A couple of more bluish purple type plants that get quite big in the landscape, but this is a different species, and the underside of the foliage is purple. And I hope you can catch that when you look at that picture on the left. Look at the back side of the foliage. Now, we've been trying to flip that around through breeding, but this plant is actually sterile. It doesn't produce seed, and so it's not invasive. Has a wonderful purple flower on it. We've been doing some testing with some of our Vitex varieties and finding that they're living in the Twin Cities. Unfortunately, this species is not quite as hardy. It's a little more zone 5 or 6. I don't have that one memorized. But when it blows in the wind, that purple really shows off, and very, very heat tolerant, very drought tolerant plant as well. Weigela. Great purple foliage. Proven Winners has some great varieties. There's a lot of great dark leaf Weigelias that just add a pop of color, not only with that foliage, but then with the flowers. that come on in the Twin Cities. It's typically a June thing and then some rebloom later in the season. But this is the one in our first editions program with that dark, dark purple foliage. It's called Shining Sensation. In the Twin Cities, we see it go a strong 4 feet tall, a little bit bigger in warmer climates, and loves full sun, and is an easy to grow plant. With a lot of great color all season long. And you can see the allium on that picture on the right, a great perennial, purple foliage, cross purple flowers, great combination. And one tree, a red maple. When people talk about red maples, I think they get them confused with the Norway maples that stay red or burgundy all summer long. They are kind of invasive in many areas of the country. But red maple is a tree that does have green foliage all season long. But in the fall, it has great, great fall color. It's such an important thing, especially in Minnesota, where the season is so short. Fall color is a really important color season for all of us. And this is a variety that we actually found in our growing fields out at the farms in Oregon as a mutation. And Debbie, it will not grow in zone 9. I would not recommend this tree in zone 9 at all. It's more for the north, and it's an Acer rubrum, quite a staple in northern gardens. I think that's the end of my list, Diane.
I think it is. Thank you
All right.
so much. There might have been a
Sure.
couple questions for you.
I'll go look and I'll start answering.
Okay, thank you. And now, Katie, you're up to tell us about some annuals grown from seed.
Let's go. All right. So we're in Pan American Seedland. And so all of the products that you're going to see over the next 12 slides are, I'm going to consider them annuals, although some of them do have some tolerance for the southern market. You might see them reseed or come back. Let's consider these annuals or fun foliage that you can play with in your one season of landscape, or in patio containers and baskets. The other thing I'd like to say is we are from Pan American Seed. Everything that you're about to see is grown from seed. So the great news about that is that you could find them in your favorite mail order catalogs, start them very economically yourself from seed, or find them in small plant starts at your local garden center. I'm happy to announce that most of these that we're looking at are part of, actually all of these are going to be part of our fantastic foliage collection, where Pan American Seed has selected foliar items, grasses, non-flowering varieties that really just bring a natural look to your garden. Many of them are tone-on-tone green, but some of them do have some really dark burgundies or metallics, little pops of color here and there. But generally, we're looking at a more natural look for your garden. If you're nervous as a beginner gardener about, oh gosh, do I have to deadhead something? How much sun does it get? I'm worried about flowers. I'm used to my houseplants. I want to do that same thing outside. Then the fantastic foliage collection from Pan Am is where you want to start. Super easy. Most of these have very little diseases, and they're very easy care. So we're going to start here from like about A to Z. Alternanthera. This is called Purple Prince. This is a compact variety of Alternanthera, also known as Joseph's coat. And you'll see here in these pictures that it's going to stay a lot lower to the ground. It's definitely more of that great ground cover or front of the border, maybe spilling out of a container or filling in a landscape here. You could see it in front of our interspecific impatiens here, and a very tall millet in the back. So it just gives that blank canvas of deep burgundy, slightly little green in the center, but mostly in a purple burgundy moment for your color in your garden. On the next slide, we're looking at a really fun textural item called asparagus fern. This is something, again, that just kind of could grow by the wayside, but to cultivate asparagus fern has been kind of difficult lately. So what Pan American Seed has done has made it very easy for the grower to keep it contained and to have really great germination. So what that means for you is that the seed you buy will germinate a lot better. You'll get better yield. And then you'll also get more of this beautiful little fuzzy textural, and it's not too spiky. So some asparagus fern could have that little spike that might pinch you. It's kind of hidden among the fronds, but this one softens that a lot more. And we're seeing a lot of uses of this. You can see it in a solo container as a great swath between color because it has that neutral green again, fuzzy, soft texture. Put some googly eyes on that container and you're going to just bring a little bit more like whimsy to your garden too. We've also seen great application of this for cutting gardens. If you love to have your taller zinnias or sunflowers or any kind of cutting cosmos and things like that, go ahead and take a handful of this asparagus fern to be a nice little greenery to your bouquet. One of our classics, Rex Begonia named Griffin, has been one of the most beloved plants of our former president of Pan American Seed. And so I have to show her here. What we love about Griffin is got that very broad leaf. This is a full shade item, and the seed is a pelleted seed, so it gets a nice 360 view. Some Rex begonias tend to just like lean off to one side, and this one doesn't do that. It gets you a nice 360 begonia experience. So you'll have a couple of pellets within these types of containers. You can see one deep dark shade in the corner, very structural. And then here in a little tin container as well. So it's got that primordial, if you got grandkids that love dinosaurs, I mean, this is one to kind of hide in the back underneath trees. What we love about Griffin too is that it could also be brought indoors. You know, we were talking about what kinds of questions do you get from family and friends? My dad is notorious for saying, can I bring it inside? And generally like to say, Dad, just buy a new plant next year. But this one you can bring indoors and it still gives you that beautiful, it doesn't need the light. So it can still give you that beautiful structure, maple leaf size, and still enjoy it as a house plant as well. Our Kong collection from Pan American Seed with breeding from Cicada. We have a original Kong here. You could see a human hand holding that leaf. It's just massive. So these are your shade loving Coleus. And this is where you start to get into that swaths of color. If you're looking for something that has boom without the bloom for your shade, but you want to add a little color, you don't just want a fern or, you know, typical green on green hosta. This broadleaf Kong or Kong Jr. Will give you that color. They're from seed, so they will develop a bit of a flower. And when the flower starts, you can either pinch that off and you'll still get more of a structure in the plant itself, or let that flower develop and you'll bring in bees and butterflies to the garden as well. But for one of the ways to kind of bring that leafy, colorful texture to shade, I can't recommend enough the Kong series, or for a slightly smaller structure, the Kong Jr. And these mix well with other shade-loving containers. And now we're looking at Coleus in the sun. Pan American Seed has done a lot of research to make sure that you can have success with Coleus from seed in the sun as well. We have an All-America Selection winner, Coral Candy, which was just introduced last year. Diane, I know you love this one too. It's got such a modern swath of that coral mixed with a chartreuse edge on a very long, strappy leaf. And then I'm giving you guys a sneak peek because Sweet Paprika is a seed Coleus for the sun that will be introduced next year. But you can see where our breeding is going. We're trying to give you that vegetative kind of big plant structure of a vegetative Coleus that you have to buy in store. But now you can start it from seed and have that same experience. I have Redhead from Balflora plant is one of my favorite. I love that red color. And now with Sweet Paprika in that dark burgundy, you've got that same opportunity. And in our color grass collection, you don't want to forget about color grasses or grasses in general. You know, when you talk foliage, you just need a little bit of like a natural landscape, but more than just something you mow over. You know, grass and lawns are great, but when you make a conscious effort to bring a grass or a carex or a sirocco into your garden, it adds this wispy movement with the wind. So you can see red rooster here on the right. I also picked this one because the color of the year, according to Pantone, is mocha mousse. And like, oh gosh, brown in the garden, that doesn't sound great. But with this chocolate kind of latte color, you can see how the colorful flower in front of it just pops even more. So you have this movement, adding that texture and structure, but then also allowing for other products to other flowers to pop against it. But I also like on the far left, when you see our full collection kind of in 1 or 2 pots, how that would give you this kind of nature loving look without having to place it in the ground and mow over it or cut it back for those reasons. So we have lots of different types of color grass, including festuca. We have isolepsis, but kind of looks like a little, like it's called live wire, has a little like almost like a electric kind of wire look to it. The Animanthely, Legulas, Karl Forster grasses, think that well, and then think about all the different colors that grasses can come in those tone-on-tone greens, the reds, and then even the beige and brown. And if you're not planting a beautiful dichondra in your hanging baskets, you are missing out on just one more way to elevate your colorful baskets. So I'm wearing my pink wave petunia shirt today. That's our new Easy Wave rose in the center. And that would be a beautiful basket by itself, but doesn't it just look so much more luxe with this silver foliage just pouring out the bottom, almost like looks like a jellyfish or something like that. It gives that little extra sway in the breeze. And our dichondra from Pan American Seeds comes in silver. And then also on the right, you'll see emerald falls too. I didn't show the picture here, but you can see in the left side spilling over a retaining wall. It would make a great ground cover. And the other thing you have to know about silver is in your garden at night, if you're ever walking around at night, it's silvers and whites that get picked up by the moonlight. So even if you have a few solar powered lights out there, your darker colored flowers or even your colored flowers may not get picked up, but the silver is going to capture that light. The white's going to capture that light. So you'll have a different opportunity to dine al fresco when the lights are out and still be able to enjoy your plants. This is a hibiscus called Mahogany Splendor, and it has been in the garden world a while now. We've just kind of revisited it, like put this thing back on your playlist because it kind of has that Weigela look that Debbie had shared a little bit earlier. But this is a fast-growing annual that gives you that Japanese maple look, but it's an annual. It's going to grow that big in one season and give you this backdrop of this darker color. And I really like this bronzy metallics. We'll look at a couple others that have that. But bronze and metallics can bring a kind of a masculine feeling sense to your garden, or if you want to use it as a backdrop and capture that, the whites popping against that would be great in a mixed container. And to control it, it's just a matter of pinching the center. It's kind of like pinching it down to keep it mounded and small, or you let it go and you see on the right, this is a park in Chicago, how large it can be. And then at the end of the season, it's okay to rip it out of the ground and start fresh with a new design. Some more colored grass-ish type plants. I just like these two specifically because as spikes in between your containers, or as, again, tall structural or mid-height structure in your garden, we have two juncus here. Javelin on the left that stays nice, straight, and tall like a dart. And then imagine a little humidity hit your hair and it got a little twisty. And that's what you get with Twister. So you have this more fun and unique twistiness, can add a little bit more of a modern flair to a mixed container. But both of those have that almost a succulent type jart into your containers. And again, grasses, so they don't need a lot of water. And you can cut them back like a haircut if they get too big, and they're easy to shape. And bringing in some more of that metallic, we looked at a taller millet in the back of our first slide on Alternanthera. But here is Copper Prince, which is a slightly shorter version of that. I love the picture on the right because those cattails are just adorable. It actually looks like there's a cat playing in that coreopsis, like its little tails are having a meeting up in the center there. And on the left-hand side, you can see the pollen or the little seed heads that are on there. If you want sparrows and songbirds in your garden, then they will be flocking to this type of millet to just kind of grip onto the side of that cattail, pick off a little snack, and not really harming any of your foliage there. It does kind of look like a short, darker corn leaf structure, which is great to add that natural look as well. But this one specifically has that coppery metallic essence that you don't really find too much in flowering plants, where we have to breed into to get that effect. So this is one that's not going to get too tall and block your view, but does add that kind of foxtail look and texture. Don't forget about your herbs as well, whether they're edible herbs or something more ornamental. We're talking about foliage, things that don't have or don't need a flower to be impactful. So your mints, your tall basils, your rosemaries, all of those would make great and excellent combos mixed in with your annuals. There's no rules, right? You don't have to have your backyard devoted to your vegetables and your edibles, and your front yard is flowers only. Mix it all in. You make the rules. It's your garden. What I like about this ornamental mint called mini mint, it's more of a steppable type Corsican mint. So you can plant this like you would almost a creeping thyme. And as it is a mint, it's going to grow very fast. We had a very small little plugs tray starter at the beginning of one of our events, and it was a 4-day event. By day 4, this thing had already covered the tray and was spilling down onto the table. And as you step on it, you get that really soft mint fragrance. You can see on the left that you can grow them super tiny, and they make great little place settings. If you're having, a get together, you want someone to take something home. Again, it's just a broadcast of seed on the soil, and you can see how it's covering the strawberry pot there. Great for a scent experience, hitting all your senses. Very touchable. The grandkids could touch it. But yeah, don't turn your back on a mint. You'll be cutting this one back for sure. And another one that has, when it is a ornamental versus some that's culinary, you start to get these really cool oddities in the structure of the leaf or the plant. So if I'm not going to be growing oregano for a recipe, but a genus of that is this kirigami, which is an ornamental oregano with these kind of overlapping little rotinis. I'm Italian. I'm going to call it a rotini. And there's soft pinks and greens, very appealing. But again, it does have that oregano fragrance. So you've got a swinging basket or in your garden that gives you that aroma. And everybody loves fragrance in the garden. So what we love to say overall about our fantastic foliage is it's just a great way to find unique plants in your garden, to go for something that's a little bit different, but they add great structure. They make your other flowering plants look better, or it gives you a very modern, soft retreat for your garden. And it doesn't have to have a flower to be as important.
Great. Thank you, Katie. And Natalie, please take your time. Everybody is going to want, so we do not have to end at the top of the hour. I know that you have some wonderful foliage plants here, so just take your time. If anybody has to leave, it is being recorded, but I know we want to see everything you have too, Natalie.
Well, as Deb Lonnie knows, I can be a marvelous auctioneer, but I would rather not speak at auctioneer speed going through these. But I will try to be careful about everybody's time. I know we're taking time out in the middle of our day. So I want to start by just letting people know when I talk about these plants, I'm going to give you the zones. I'm going to give you the sizes. I'm going to give you siting information, what their tolerances are. So listen for those. All of that's built into what I'm going to talk about. Sometimes I'm even going to talk about the breeder info, because I think it's really interesting that we have breeders that we work with, not only in the United States, not only in North America, but throughout the country. So we really are in search for the most interesting plants that we can bring back to you from all over the world. And you're going to see some of those today that I'm really excited about. So let's start with our first one. This is Tres Amigos Abelia. Oh, and one more thing. I'm probably not going to be able to answer your questions at the end because this thing's going to end and I'm not going to be on chat. So I'm going to give you my email address, Natalie, Natalie, and I know Gail can probably put it in chat, at springmeadownursery.com. If you have a question about any of the plants you saw today or about our shrubs in general, let me know. All right, let's get going. This is Tres Amigos Abelia. It's an Abelia grandiflora. And this is brought to us from Minier Nurseries out of France. And this is also known as a glossy Abelia. And this is going to have slightly fragrant white blooms, and it's really long blooming. So it starts in early summer and will be scattered with these white blooms all throughout the summer. But as you can see, it's the foliage that's really the star on this Abelia. And because it's semi-evergreen, you're going to be able to take advantage of this long-lasting tricolor foliage from the very beginning of spring. I've got one in my garden that stayed foliated all winter long. Now, we had a pretty spectacular winter. Spectacular in the amount of snow here in winter, but what it also does is it insulates our plants. So I have things like a glossy Abelia in my Zone 6B garden that sailed through winter. The snow melted and I have this beautiful variegated foliage underneath. The foliage on this can appear in shades of cream and pink, you can see there, tinged with yellow. In the spring, it's going to get a little more yellow. That pink is new, like new foliage color. It's going to be about 2 to 3 feet tall and 3 to 5 feet wide, so a little wider than it is tall at maturity. This makes it a great addition to mixed borders, or maybe you're going to want to put it in a cottage garden, but you are going to want to plant it in full sun to part sun, maybe even a little more shade if you're planting it in its warmer end. Anytime we have something that has something like a white margin on the leaf there, it doesn't hurt if you're in a warmer zone, because this is hardy in zones 6 through 9. It's very heat tolerant all the way up to 9, but if you've got it in a sunny place in zone 9, it might burn a little bit, so give it a little more shade. This is adaptable to most soil. It's deer resistant, a really, really tough but beautiful little Abelia. All right, next we have Sergeant Peppercornus. 2025 is the year of the dogwood, and this is a gorgeous dogwood. This is a Tatarian dogwood, also known as red-barked, white or Siberian dogwood as their common name. Now, this is a Cornus alba, so it's native to Eastern and Central Asia or in areas inhabited by the Tatars, hence the name Tatarian dogwood. Tatars is an umbrella name for different Turkic ethnic groups belonging to the name Tatar across Eastern European and Asia. So a little history lesson for you there. Sergeant Pepper, as you can see, is a shrubby dogwood with green and white variegated foliage that will take on pink tones in spring. You can see the white spring flower there on the left. In the summer, that foliage is going to transition to that white and green that you see on the left as well. And then back into the late summer and into the fall, you're going to once again see that pink take over. So it really transitions in colors throughout the season, just kaleidoscoping in color throughout the season, give you a lot of interest. This has red twigs in the wintertime. So it's a nice replacement for a red twig dogwood in places where you're afraid about the spreading that red twig dogwood can do sometimes. This is a little less aggressive. However, it is a quick grower. It is going to reach its heights of 4 to 6 feet and 6 to 8 feet pretty quickly for a shrub. So it's a nice size plant. It's going to reach its mature size. You're going to plant it in full to part sun. And it's super hardy, USDA zones 3 to 7. This guy's deer resistant, adaptable to clay and alkaline soil. All right. This is Kodiak Red 2.0 Durvilla. What a name, right? This is part of our Kodiak Durvilla series, and we have 5 varieties, all with different foliage colors. But I'm going to talk about Kodiak Red 2.0 today. It's an improved Kodiak Red, so it's replacing our Kodiak Red Durvilla that was earlier in the season. The reason we just add the 2.0 is this is a really common landscaping plant because it gives such beautiful color, because it's a native species that's so adaptable and so easy to grow. It's really nice used en masse for landscaping. And if somebody is a landscaper and you're speccing it for a job, you can still spec Kodiak Red 2.0 where you had Kodiak Red, and it's going to blend in really, really great with those. Now, Durvilla is commonly known as a bush honeysuckle, and that just references the tubular nature of the flowers. And you can kind of see the little puffy flowers there. Yeah, yep, they're pointed to right there on the left. And those are reminiscent of Japanese honeysuckles, but that is the only similarity. Durvilla is a genus that's native to North America, and it is not invasive like a Japanese honeysuckle. This comes from our internal breeding program. And our breeding manager, Megan Matai. So we have a wonderful internal breeding program here, and Megan does amazing work for us. Kodiak Red, like I said, is a native species, hardy in USDA zones 3 to 8. It's going to get 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. Makes a great cut stem too. So it's a nice big shrub with long straight stems. You can strip those leaves off the bottom of the branch, and it has a lot of really great vase life if you want that for foliage with your cut flowers. Put it in full sun to part sun. It's going to be more colorful the more sun you put it in, but it will tolerate dry shade, is drought tolerance once established, is deer resistant, and super, super tough. All right, this is one of my favorites. I know you're going to say a burning bush is your favorite, but this is the first and only seedless, sterile, and non-invasive burning bush on the market. Fireball Seedless. This is an excellent introduction from Dr. Tom Ranney, who has brought so many cultivars to our catalog, and his crew at Mountain Horticultural Crops Research Station in North Carolina. Now, Fireball Seedless is part of our new In Check program, which identifies species that have been developed to be seedless, sterile, or have very low seed sets with the In Check logo that you see there on the left. So you can see this right next to the cultivar name on the tag, but what it's going to do is tell you that this may be a species that you're used to seeing as an invasive plant, but this is no longer the case. It's either low, very, very low seed or sterile. So let's talk about this guy. We use trialed and tested a lot at Proven Winners. So we definitely put this guy to the test before we released it. In side-by-side testing, Fireball Seedless produced 8 seeds on one entire plant versus over 1,330 seeds on one branch of a conventional burning bush. Plus, in that testing, they were not able to get those 8 seeds from Fireball Seedless to germinate. So we felt really, really confident to introduce this to our program. And we're working hard to address that problem of invasive species across the board. So this is just one answer. So it follows that Fireball Seedless will be entirely replacing the original Fireball Euonymus in our shrub line, and we're really excited to do that. It's a compact, low-maintenance shrub that grows 5 to 7 feet tall and wide, thrives in zones 4 to 8 in full sun. Once again, more sun, more color to part shade, adaptable to most soils, and drought tolerant once established. As you can see, it is the 2025 Green Thumb Professionals Choice Award winner, which meant a lot to us. Thank you to everyone who voted. It brings all the durability and blazing red color you'd expect, but with no risk of spreading into wild areas like conventional burning bush. Next is Legend of the Fall Fothergilla, also called a bottle brush or a hybrid Fothergilla. Fothergilla intermedia is kind of a newer cultivar. It was primarily chosen for their compact intermediate size, their impressive like white spring bottle brush blooms that you can see there on the left, and its bright fall color. Let's talk about intermedia just really quickly. Fothergilla cross, you see that X in the middle. Cross intermedia is a deciduous shrub whose parents are 2 American species. One of them is larger and one of them is smaller. So this is intermediate physically between those 2 parents, hence the name. As of 2007, this cross intermedia has been generally accepted as the chosen hybrid name for this species. So Legend of the Fall hybrid Fothergilla was selected for this extra bright, brilliant autumn foliage color in hues of orange, yellow, and red, and you can see it starting to turn on the left there, and then in its bright, bright orange fall color. It's deer resistant, it's heat tolerant. You can put it in USDA zones 5 all the way up to 9. You're going to want it in full sun to part sun. I'm going to have everybody just start repeating with me. More sun, more color. Debbie talked about it at the beginning, and that is absolutely true. Height and width, 4 to 5 feet. If that's a little too big for you, look up Legend of the Small. Its little brother only gets 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. Next is Paisley Pup, commonly called a dog hobble or a fetter bush, but who wouldn't love to say the word Leucothoe fontanesiana? So it's a Leucothoe, and this is an award winner. It recently won an award way out west at the Far West Show, Award of Merit, and that also means a lot. That's a lot of people in the nursery industry saying, hey, this is a special plant. It's native from Maine to Georgia. It's a graceful broadleaf evergreen that will bring splashes of color to partly shady areas in your garden. Now this also, just like remember we saw that dogwood that had that ever-changing color all season long. This has ever-changing foliage color in pink and green and cream and white and bronze and yellow. I feel like Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat with this one. Fragrant bell-shaped racemes. You can see those flowers down there are called a raceme that persist throughout the spring. This is a good pollinator plant, and it's very, very deer resistant. Now, like most broadleaf evergreens, it's going to like your soil to be a little bit acidic, but honestly, this is surprisingly adaptable. So even if you live in an alkaline place like mine, it's probably going to do just fine. So this, you're going to want to plant this in USDA zones 5 to 8, part sun to part shade. It's going to get 3 to 4 feet tall, 4 to 5 feet wide. This is another great plant from Megamatized Breeding Program here at Spring Meadow. All right, here's a plant for those of you that live in some warmer zones. Jazz Hands Variegated Loropetalum. This is a Chinese fringe flower. Now, this guy's been out for a while, but when it was introduced, it was pretty exciting because it was the first ever variegated Loropetalum, and it was brought to us by Yuji Suzuki of Japan. Now you can see the gorgeous pink and white splashes on those dark purple leaves, and then you get these bright pink, like jazz hands type flowers that appear in the spring. It's deer resistant, and of course it's very heat tolerant. When you go down south, you're going to see Loropetalum growing everywhere, but this is a really, I think, exciting color of this type of plant. It's going to have our first designation in 2026 as our first heat-loving shrub of the year. So we're going to start identifying what are our super heat-tolerant plants that our growers are really loving, that you're going to see more in garden centers. This has a hardiness rating of 7B to 9. I do tell people if you love it down here in the up here in the northern area, but you know you can't grow it, you can always buy a little guy and use it as a spiller in your annuals containers. Really pretty that way. Put it in part sun to full sun. It's going to reach 4 to 6 feet depending on where you live. Next, Illuminati Sparks, Philadelphus. I almost said Philadelphia. This is a Philadelphus or a mock orange. Now we know what we love mock orange for are their super fragrant blooms. Like you can see that on the right. This cultivar has that and more. But with conventional varieties, once those blooms are all done, the show is kind of over. So we wanted to do something to continue that color story once we're done with those really beautiful blooms. And that's what we got with Illuminati Sparks. Colorful yet understated golden green foliage. You can see a close-up of it on the left there. Makes a really interesting addition to gardens all season long. It has a dense kind of globular habit. Its variegation is very stable, so you're going to see very few branches that you have to trim out. But I'm going to make the little note here, and that's a question I thought of later when Diane asked questions. What do people say? I have a variegated plant, and it's shooting out one all dark branch or one all yellow branch or whatever. If you see something that isn't variegated coming out of your variegated plant, trace it down to the base and just snip it out. That'll help keep your variegation stable throughout your plant, throughout your plant's life. So let's see. It's deer resistant. It's drought tolerant. Once established, you can put it in USDA zones 4 to 8, full sun to part sun, and it's going to get about 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. And this was bred by our own Tim Wood, also here at Spring Meadow Nursery. All right, this is Stay Classy Prunus. For those of you that love Ron Burgundy, you're going to love the burgundy foliage that stays classy here on this Prunus sustaina. It's a purple-leafed sand cherry. Now, the first cross of a Prunus sustaina was made in South Dakota way back in 1910, and really nobody was doing anything to improve it since that time. So we work with also Mark Brand out of the University of Connecticut quite a lot to get a lot of our plants, and he started working on this purple leaf sand cherry and brought us the cultivar you see here that we named Stay Classy. Now this has very dark burgundy foliage, but there's lots of spaces within the branches that you can see there too. So you don't get that kind of black hole look that you can get a lot with dark foliage plants. You can see it has a little pretty spring bloom there on the left, but it's really that dark burgundy foliage that we really love. And also it's about half the size of conventional prunus. And that's really what Dr. Mark Brand brought us with this plant. It's a super useful 3 to 4 foot tall and wide purple leaf sand cherry. Super, super hardy. It's hardy down all the way down to USDA zone 2, and you can take it up to 8. So a really wide hardiness zone. Put it in full to part sun, 3 to 4 feet high, 4 feet wide, super drought tolerant once established. All right, this gorgeous gal is Lemony Lace Sambucus racemosa. It's a super showy cut leaf selection of the native Sambucus racemosa, or elderberry plant. It's a brightly golden, highly dissected foliage with a colorful red hue when it first comes out. And you can kind of see that in the flower picture on the left there. So when that foliage emerges, it has a little red hue to it, transitions to the bright yellow color, white flowers in spring. But that's before really the leaves completely emerge. So you really can take advantage of a lot of those light, those flowers, and then it has red fruit in the fall. So nice ornamentally, nice for your local wildlife. They love those little red berries on it. This is a multiple award-winning plant, and it's deer resistant, hardy in USDA zones 4 to 7, also 4 to 7 feet tall and wide, will tolerate full sun in northern climates, but prefers light shade in warmer areas. This guy is crazy colored, double play candy corn spirea. This is one of the most amazing spirea that I've seen, and I grow them myself. I love them. Candy apple red foliage in the spring. You can see it there on the left. As the season progresses, the foliage is going to transition to a pineapple yellow color that you can see on just underneath that bright purple flower there. So you start candy apple red. It's going to turn a bright green color with topped with purple blooms and then orange fall foliage that you see there on the right. But she's not just another pretty face, this girl. This will tolerate clay soil, drought, is deer resistant. It's a sterile triploid spirea, also developed by the amazing Dr. Tom Rainey over at NC State. It's USDA zone 4 to 8. Put it in full to part sun, more color, more sun, tiny rounded habit, height width, 1.5 to 2.5 feet. Next, we have a witherod viburnum. Brandywine Viburnum is a native species that doesn't require a pollinator to deliver these breathtaking fall berries. Look at those gorgeous berries. They transform from green to shades of vivid pink and blue all at once. You can see it there, photographic evidence. These are set against red and burgundy glossy fall foliage, and this display is just really remarkable. And that's one thing that we always want to think of as gardeners. Where do we get color from the beginning of spring all the way till frost is hitting our garden? And this guy provides it so beautiful. This is also a multiple award winner, including the 2024 American Society of Cut Flower Growers Woody Cut of the Year. So if you haven't thought about this as a cut flower, maybe it's time to start. An absolutely gorgeous stem for your vases, deer resistant, tolerant of clay soil, heat tolerant. You can plant it in USDA zones 5 all the way to 9. Exposure, full apart sun, and it's going to reach heights and widths of 5 to 6 feet. And our final plant of the day, Midnight Sun, Weigela, Florida. So we saw Shining Sensation earlier from Debbie with that great dark burgundy leaf Weigela, which I love, and I really fought with which one to show. This is Midnight Sun. It's a neat and tidy bun-shaped Weigela brought to us from Bert Verhoef from the Netherlands. As you can see, it has a glossy orange and red foliage that persists summer through fall. It's perfect for the front of the border. It actually functions a lot like a Coleus would without having to plant it every year. I love that Coleus color. Nothing's going to stop me from growing them, but how about adding this to your collection? It's going to come up every year. It does bring you pink flowers in the spring. However, the form and the colorful foliage is really what we're growing it for. You can see how it transitions from this yellow new growth to a dark coppery color in the summer and then bright orange in the fall. USDA zone 4 to 8. Put it in full sun just like you would any Weigela, height and width 1 to 1.5 feet. So this little baby can pop anywhere in your garden. It's deer resistant, adaptable to clay and alkaline soil. And whew, with that, I have ripped through our plants. Back to you.
You did. You didn't rip through them. You did them a lot of honor. That was great. Great information. And thank you for zipping through those. With that, it looks like our questions kind of dwindled, but I bet you're getting some emails, Natalie. And to everybody, all of our panelists, this was wonderful. I was trying to do the math. I think I now have 48 or 50 plants that I need to go buy now because they're all amazing. Well, of course, some of them won't do in my zone, but that's okay. We love what you guys presented. We appreciate your time, your information, your knowledge, your tips. It was wonderful. And with that, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on the next webinar.